Right, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's video. It's been a while. I've kind of forgotten what the hell to do. But anyway, today we're taking a look at a couple of PS4 boards. This is my sort of one day a week, this afternoon, that I get to come up here and do a bit of work. And you know, it's been a while since we've had a video, so we'll do one, and I'll explain to you exactly why. It's been tricky sort of month or so for me. I've been full of a rather nasty throat infection. God knows where it came from or what the hell happened, but it came on rather quickly. It was quite aggressive. It took quite a few antibiotics to get rid of. In the meantime, I had to keep away from solder fumes and flux fumes and everything else. I had to do everything I could to avoid antagonising it any further than what it already was, which meant that sort of like the work I had to do was done in dribs and drabs. To try and sort of minimise my exposure to it. You can't just stop, can you? You know, being a one-man band, if you like, you've just got to crack through them as best you can, and that's exactly what I've been doing. But in order to stop antagonising it any further, you know, trying to talk and breathe the bloody fumes, you know, I mean, we've got the fume extraction system in here, and of course that takes a lot of it, but you still get a little bit of nasties in the air, and you know, you don't really sort of want to be antagonising any more than you have to. So I've been quiet and I've been away, but hopefully this will be back now. So it's just a bit of a catch up, and like I say, I don't think we're going to be running into anything groundbreaking on this video as such, but you know, you'll be able to see what we do and how we do it, and if we do come across anything interesting along the way, then all's well that ends well, isn't it? So today we've got a couple of boards in here for HDMI port replacements, so we'll go through it. You know, you'll be able to see what we do. Like I said, there's nothing particularly groundbreaking in this one. It's just HDMI port replacements, but you know, we'll give you a bit of a catch up as to what's been going on over the last couple of weeks, and we'll crack through these. So basically, as I say, it's been a bit of a naughty, horrible month for me, really. You know, more horse pill bloody antibiotics than I could shake a stick at. It was all developed off the back of what seemed like a fairly innocuous cold. I'll be honest with you, I've only ever had a throat infection caused by bacterial infection like this one once before, and it was hell. And it was a reminder just how miserable it bloody well made me, I tell you. Yeah, just not very nice at all, really. And like I say, it couldn't come at a worse time, because obviously, you know, being busy in here with one thing and another and trying to develop a business isn't easy when, you know, the one thing that you kind of need, you know, solder, flux and everything else probably isn't the best to go breathing in while your throat's red raw. Like I said, the fume extraction system does a good job and keeps the biggest part of the nasties out of the air, but you know, you can't get rid of everything, can you? So it's really not a great idea to go buggering about with that sort of stuff when, you know, feeling as nasty as it was, and it's taken a bloody long time to get rid of. I mean, even after the antibiotics, I say it took, you know, probably another week, 10 days or so to properly go away. But you know, these things happen, and it comes to us all eventually. So that's what I've been doing anyway, just trying to recoup a little bit. But in the meantime, obviously, I've been having to get a bit of work done. So what's been going on then? Well, as I say, trying to develop this little project of mine, this sort of little micro business that I run at the moment outside of work, you know, into something that maybe one day I can sort of go and do full time would be lovely. Obviously I can't do that on PlayStations alone, because I think things aren't going to last forever. You know, but I do MacBooks and things like that, and laptops and everything else, so it'd be nice to try and get into a little bit more of that sort of side of things than I do currently. But all in good time. So yeah, aside from sort of like trying to recoup a little bit from that and doing the odd sort of PlayStation, the odd job in the middle, it's been more or less business as usual, you know, busy with work. I have a wedding looming on the horizon in December, so I've been doing a lot of running around you know, doing bits and pieces, getting that all booked and everything else. That's in New York in December, so really looking forward to that one. Bloody expensive, and as I say, lots and lots and lots of stuff to do and get organised for that. I've got a backlog of work in here I need to get through and everything else, so you can imagine it's been fun. And then not only that, but sort of like what we're in now, the middle of October, I've got a holiday coming up in about 4 weeks time, going to Disneyland in Paris, which will be nice, taking the little one. Probably on what's their first proper holiday, if you like. So again, been sort of running around trying to organise that. And, you know how expensive bloody Disneyland is, so you can imagine. So I need to get through a few more of these now, so try and make as much of that back as I can. So it's kind of what I'm up to. So yeah, as I say, you know, as I'm sure you're aware, the channel's been quiet as such, and you know, not much in the way of new videos. And as I say, I do apologise for that. You know, the subscriber count keeps going up, but they're not seeing much for it at the moment, and I am aware of that. It's been doing my head in, you know. I've got a couple of things I'm actually working on. I've got a couple of things I'm in the middle of, sort of filming and putting together, which aren't quite ready yet, but they will be soon. So, you know, I dare say we've not sort of had much in the last month or so, for one reason or another, and between now and the end of the year we're going to have quite a few videos, hopefully. So it's like the old saying goes, you wait for one bus and then two come along at once. Or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in my case. So hopefully, you know, it's going to be a good couple of months. So I'm just trying to drop this port out. As you can see there on the upper shot, the legs are splayed out because it's had a hell of a hit as this one. The internals look pretty nasty. So all we've done, we've put a bit of flux down on the top side and the bottom. We've put some leaded solder into the legs. Ran that through the board, and that gets a bit of heat into the board, dilutes that lead-free solder down inside those holes with the leaded, makes it a little bit easier to remove. It drops the melting point of the solder, and hopefully this makes it a little bit easier to remove for us. So we're just working the hot air back and forth across all those pins, and of course across the middle where the 19 data power I/O pins are located. This thing is slowly dropping out of the board, so you don't want to push it, you know, you don't want to get impatient and put too much pressure on, because if you do that, good night Vienna. There's nothing wrong with giving it a really light tap just to see where we're at in proceedings, but anything more than that I'd try and avoid. So if you need to apply a little bit more flux on there, if you think, you know, go for it. So my apologies if we're blocking the camera here, but it needs must. So don't get impatient. As tempting as sometimes it may be to give it a good nudge, because it may be, but you're just on the brink of getting it, and what will happen is you'll nudge everything out of place, and all the pins and traces and everything else will come with it. There you go. You've just got to be patient. You can see there you can nudge it and it doesn't look like it's doing much, and then 5 seconds later the thing drops out of the board. So don't ever be tempted to push things too hard like that. That's a damn sure way of knackering your board, basically, so don't be tempted to do that. So all we're going to do now is we're going to flip this board over. I'm going to take a look at the header as we see it, so just get this in focus for you. Okay, So you'll notice that a couple of these pads look a little bit weird. So I mean, these two look shiny enough, but there's no solder on them. Okay, but this one here, okay, you notice how it looks really dull and sort of weird. Now then, you might think that's a pulled pad, right? You'll see one of them and think, oh shit, you know, I've damaged it. But fear not, because all it is that's oxidation on the pad. So all the contaminants and everything else that's in the solder and in the flux and everything else, the oxidation in the joint basically just clings to the pad. So when you run some new solder over it, as we're going to do here, with a bit of flux, you'll notice it comes back shiny and the solder sticks to it again. Now if you'd lifted the pad, that wouldn't happen because there's nothing for the solder to cling to, the pad's gone. So if you do see something like that, don't panic straight away. Chances are it's probably likely fine. So we just fill the holes that the HDMI port legs go through with a bit more leaded solder. What happens then is when we heat this board, that solder will sink down through the holes. It will all go molten, and the ports of the legs of the new port, even if I can get my words out right, will sit through the holes and will adhere in through the holes quite nicely, makes it nice and solid. Lots of nice solder for it to cling to. Secures the port into the board. All we've got to do then is finish the joints off underneath, and everything's hunky dory again. So, one little tip for you as well, and I don't know if you've come across this, but these new ports here, these are the V2 ones. Sometimes I've started to notice, you'll see there, you see the back of the port just there, right? That bit that's sticking up, sort of straight up towards the top of the screen, yeah? This bit here. That should be folded flat against the back of this port. So that should be folded flat across the back where this sort of length of solder goes. I've started to notice that some of these ports are actually not being folded back properly. And what happens is that secures the outside sort of metal body of the port to the plastic inner where the actual comb sits. And what I've noticed is, and to be honest, there's only one customer I've found that brings me a few machines that's sort of moaning that sometimes they're separating. And I don't know how they're doing it, because even when left like that, you can try and push the port and force the port, and you know, the thing stays together, so knows what they're doing with it. But essentially now you can see I've folded it completely flat back to there, so it just helps secure it in a little bit more and stops people pushing them out. As I say, I've only ever had him sort of say that he's had one or two back that have done that, but oh well, whatever. So as a just a precautionary thing now, I always make sure I fold them back in, just in case. It seems to have stopped him whinging, so just a tip for you there, because that's what we're about, you know, just sharing the hints and the tips and the knowledge and the experiences, more importantly. That's how you learn. So, now let's face it, this type of work you're always learning. Always learning. So, I'll just get this into position for you. Okay, lovely. Right, so we've got plenty of flux on there now. Anyway, so we'll use what's on there. Come back in with the hot air. So, again, apologies if I'm blocking your view. I'll try and come slightly to the side now then. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So you can see how it's sort of domed up above the surface of the board. Goes shiny. See it sink through there? See how it now looks like it's below the level of the board? There you go, you saw it there on the top one. That's what we're trying to achieve. Once we're there, we're just going to go around in circles across them all, make sure they're nicely molten. That's going to give us enough time to sit our new port through the holes, hold it down and flat. You get better at that with practice. If you're new to it, it'll probably take you a couple of attempts to get the bloody port in the hole, but it comes with practice, trust me, you'll get better at it. So there you go, sat through the holes. Lovely jubbly. So, I'm going to flip this round now. And hopefully dial the focus down for you. Hopefully there now you can see. Straight. Et voila! There we go. It's lovely, doesn't it? So, we can see there that the pins and the pads are nicely aligned. That's another advantage behind using these V2 ports. The older style V1s without the sealed backs where the pins are just pushed through the top, you know, like the original design in the early PS4s, tend to have to bend the outer legs out a little bit to get them into shape so that they line up properly when they're through the board. With these newer V2 ports you don't really have to do that. As I say, it's, you know, more annoyingly recently I've found that the back pins don't get crimped properly in the factory. As I say, I've only ever had one customer complain about it, that he had a couple back, but of course we resolved them for him, and now I just make sure that, despite the fact it's the only case I've ever heard of, always make sure now that they're all properly folded in. These are actually for that customer as well, so probably just as well. But anyway, got to keep them happy. Always got to keep the customers happy. Hopefully one of my supplies is going to be keeping me happy today, because I had an 11-inch Dell Chromebook in for repair last week, and come to get a screen for it. The supplier said, yeah, I can get you one of those within 24 hours. Fantastic. Tells the customer, yeah, be a few days, you know, just in case, because I've been in this business, you know, long enough to know that things don't always work out the way they intend. Anyway, I go off for a couple of days over the weekend, expecting the screen to be sat on my bench Monday morning, because it didn't turn up on the Thursday when it should have, and it didn't turn up on the Friday when I hoped it would have. Monday, nothing. Customer says, is it done yet? I'm like, well, gonna be honest, hasn't turned up yet. And they're like, oh, don't bother then, I'll take it. Like, oh. So, yeah. It's cost me a job, so I'm not best pleased with them. To be fair, they are trying to sort it out. But even so, been a little bit salty for the last day or so, because obviously the work I've done on the machine so far, I aren't going to be getting paid for. Going to mess about now, sending screens back when they turn up, and getting refunds, and putting that through my accounts, and everything else. All for the princely grand sum of nothing. A completely pointless exercise. So yeah, you know, that's been annoying me for the last sort of 24 hours or so. I'm trying to think what I did with my IPA syringe. As is traditional on these videos, if we don't lose something at least once, then frankly we've not been doing our job properly. The more I seem to tidy this desk, the worse it seems to get. What do you know? I've been looking right at it all the time. Anyway, what can you do? Yeah, it's business. But yeah, anyway, you know, from what we're going to be doing on the channel coming up, at least what I intend to do, is I have a couple of Xbox One S. Some have no power. One has a black screen of death. HDMI ports are intact, so we're going to be looking at those most likely. I'm going to do a HDAT2 tutorial for you for recovering data from a hard disk, whether that be from a laptop, an Xbox, which, you know, if you do get a black or a green screen of death, quite often it's the hard disk at fault. You can potentially recover your system using that. We do have an old video on the channel covering that actually, but we don't actually show the data recovery procedure. Just show you the symptoms and the outcome of the repair. But I have a lot of people asking me, well, how the hell do you do it then? So we'll cover that off. And also, in big news on the PlayStation 4 front, we have the release of OS version 5, or firmware version 5 as it is. So we're going to be covering that as far as the controller sync firmware tutorials go. We're going to go over how to do that with a Raspberry Pi. Current procedures I'll show you with a Teensy. You can do it with a Raspberry Pi. More people do have little Raspberry Pis kicking around for interesting bits and pieces. Whether emulation machines, things like that. All rather cool, of course. You know, so if you've got one of those, why not use it? So we're going to show you what to do with that, and that's using a piece of software called JAISPI, or JAISPI, however you want to pronounce it. So we'll show you that again. We'll show you what to do with the hardware, what hardware you need, getting it all set up, dumping, repairing, and of course getting it all back into the PlayStation and working. So that's something I'm working on. That's something I've been meaning to work on for probably the best part of 12 months. Just never got around to it. But we will do. We will do now. So that's all to do. Also a little mini project of mine that's been on the brew for quite some time. And that is, I think I've touched on it before on the channel. We have a video of an old Xbox One where we have some issues with EO7 hard disk timeouts, and that's all down to this one me and my mate were given in a box of stuff, and he was fragging it. It'd been in somebody's attic obviously for years. And that was down to the hard disk. We stripped it and we put it all back together, and it seemed to work again for a time. It sat in my display cabinet for a good couple of years and came to get it out the other month, and it didn't work. So I was mindful that it had an old really early mod chip, or even a homebrew mod chip, stuck in the LPC header, which I was mindful at the time to replace. Just never got around to it. So we removed that, and underneath there was a nick across the solder mask, and obviously from being in the attic and the loft, and you know, damp moisture and everything else gets in there, it started rotting the trace where they'd just nicked across the solder mask, and that meant that two of our IDE pins weren't connected, and the console wasn't seeing the hard disk anymore. So we replaced those traces with a bit of wire, a little bit of magnet wire. We do have the video for that. I'll pop that in the description below if you want to take a look at that. It's quite an interesting one. Some really fine delicate micro soldering on that one to reinstate that portion of the circuit. All works absolutely beautifully. Still working now. But we did get another machine along with it. That was found in a bin, funnily enough. Again, fragging. That was an early version 1 console. Thompson DVD drive. Could have even potentially been a launch unit. We didn't do much testing with it actually. It was fragging because of the early Delta power supplies. Those of you who might remember, Microsoft sent out some RCD style power leads. There was a power lead recall, and they sent you one with this really quite natty RCD protector on it, current limiter and everything. It must have cost them a fair few quid per device they sent out, and they sent quite a few of them out. Sure enough, the same issue had befallen that power supply with arcing across the contacts, because the main insert, plug insert where you put the power cable, has no strain relief on the connector, so all the strain from inserting and removing the cable over the years goes straight through the solder joints, cracks the joints, and renders the power supply either inoperable or causes spikes in voltage, makes the machine flash red and green, an early precursor to the blue light of death and the yellow light of death and the red ring of death and everything else. So anyway, we found that, we repaired that, and we got it to fire up. I'm actually not sure if at the time I tested it with a game disc in there, but it does have an XBMC dashboard on there, and it is soft modded with a T3CH or Tech or whatever soft mod. I never actually was involved in the soft mod scene of things. In my Xboxes, I always installed Executor 3CE chips in my machines that I had over the years. But this one's got a soft mod on, it's got a botch soft mod on there. The XBMC does fire up, but once you go into any of the sort of sub-menus from the home page, the thing doesn't bloody well work. The only thing you can do is turn the volume up and down. So I don't know what's going on there. It also didn't read discs, so obviously I'm thinking somebody botched the soft mod up. Nobody backed it up either. The E drive's completely empty, nothing on C. So yeah, so they botched the soft mod, probably just used it till the laser died and then thought sod it and binned it. Rather much of a shame. And then it fragged. So it's probably never very good, so we fixed the frag years ago, still going strong there. Got a laser ordered for it the other month in September. That turned up. Just got around to fitting it yesterday, funnily enough. It does read discs again now, so should be able to fire up the soft mod DVD, get it reverted. I actually want it to go back to an original stock setup if possible. Don't know how likely that's going to be, what with no bloody backup installed. But we'll give it a go. So I'm going to try and do that on camera, just in case, because, those machines aren't getting any younger. And they're probably at that little sort of weird point where they're too old for anybody to really give a damn about them. And not quite old enough for collectors to start sort of buying the good ones up, so they're cheap as chips at the moment because nobody seems to want them. They're a little bit unloved, which I think is a real shame because they're a fantastic console even now. Yesterday I went into CEX in Scarborough for my weekend off just before we came home, and they had a fantastic collection of old Xbox One and PlayStation 2 games in there. Ended up coming out with 18 quid's worth of stuff. Like 50p, 75p a pound. All stuff I had in my collection from years ago, long since forgotten. And you see them sat on the shelf, oh bloody hell, I had that, I remember that. Oh wow, that was ace. Oh, it's a quid. Oh, I'm having that. So I ended up coming out with a big bag full of stuff. Now then, this port's been whacked and the contacts aren't into the board anymore, so I am very mindful though of knocking this port backwards because it's right on top of all the little diodes and everything else on the bottom side of the board, so don't really want to go smacking it about too much. I'm just going to have a look at this just to see if there is any trace damage. That looks nasty. as old hell. Alright, this is going to take some creativity to try and get this out here, because I think that's actually still inserted into the board. So the plastic centre comb is completely separated from the outer shell. So the plastic comb is actually still inserted, and lifting this outside edge out is actually not doing anything. Look how close it is to the back of the... These are the diodes here. That, I can't even get a tweezer blade in between there. So they're really close. So this is quite nasty. So this is going to take a little bit of creativity to shift, because it does still appear to be soldered to the board as well. So hopefully there's no trace damage on this one, but it's kind of hard to say at this point without getting this bloody thing out. Yep, you just got to do what you got to do. Just be really careful if you get one like that, because the two sides are completely separated out. So lifting out on the metal bit actually wasn't releasing the port, and that's why it wasn't dropping out, because there wasn't enough weight in that metal outer shield thing to actually drop the port out of the board. So you do have to be careful, because that thing was still soldered. You could see underneath the port the pins were still soldered onto the headers. So one wrong move there and you're going to pull all these pads straight out of the board. So hopefully there's no pad damage. I haven't taken a look yet, I will do in a sec. Just doing this bit by eye at the moment. The monitor's actually over on the left hand side of me, so let's have a look. Tidy that solder blob up in a moment, but no, luckily enough it looks like all the pads are intact, which is excellent news. So yeah, that's just a flavour of the things we've got coming up. I've got a couple of old PS2s over the back that I've had in here for probably the best part of 12 months as well. Again, found in a bin. They look mint as well. A little bit dirty. Don't know if they work. I think they do fire up. I think I did plug them into the TV and they do start at least. So at least from what I remember of them. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. Hopefully not. So anyway, we've done the same here as what we did before. Just filled those. We filled those outer HDMI leg holes, locating points, with some leaded solder. So let's get another port and let's get it dropped into the board. So yeah, so that's just a quick flavour of what's coming up and what's been going on in my life anyway. So hopefully you're all doing very well as well out there. Hopefully life is treating you well. So we've just applied a little bit of flux to that there now. Going in for some more hot air. As before, we're going to do what we did previously. We're going to get the locating holes nice and warm. Going to melt that solder, get it to drop through the board. So this is on 490 degrees C at 100 litres of airflow per minute. Only about a centimetre away from the surface of the board with the iron, sorry, with the hot air. be really mindful. You don't want to go too aggressive at it because you will blow those little diodes and capacitors to the rear of this port. Again, you want to be careful when you're going in with the port itself because you haven't got much clearance to the back of it. It's all too easy to knock that sort of stuff out, I tell you. It really is. So just going to have a look now, just to make sure that that port is sat nicely into the board. Appears to be. Let's give it the old eyeball. Yep. Sat nice and flat. That's what we like. Okay, it's time to do a bit of tidying up with the soldering iron, and then once we've done tidying up with the soldering iron, that's when we can so we've still got the big tip on, and we're going to get some flux on here. So we're just going to tidy these joints up. Make sure these holes are filled, so that port is nice and strong in the board. Going to hesitate the chisel tip over there for a few seconds. Get some heat into the board. Work that solder back and forth. That's pushing the bloody port back out. Oh, little git. Oh, I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen that happen before. That's a new one on me. Bloody thing. Right, okay. Well, that's a new one. I've never seen that. Unusual. I suppose if you really want to avoid that, you could solder the top side pins in first, but it's not something I've usually had to do. What an unusual. What an unusual thing that was. Okay, well, these things are sent to triers. I suppose I was hesitating over there for quite a while. Directly over the top. Now then, if you want to add a bit of extra strength to your port, what you can do is, what a lot of people do, see this ground plane here? Oop. This one. This ground plane here, a lot of people bridge across onto these two pins, and likewise here and here, to try and anchor the port into the board that little bit more. Not something I personally do, but you can do, and because they're quite close together, it's easy to get solder across onto those pads. So don't worry if you do bridge those pads across, it doesn't matter. As I say, some people even choose to do it on purpose, but you know, it's all personal preference. I personally don't care, don't mind, don't bother. I like to be tidy. And as you can see there, now the difference between replacing a port on a 1200 and replacing a port on one of the older 1000 1100 series machines is that the components underneath the port and top side to the rear of it are a hell of a lot closer than they are on the older 1000, 1100 series machines. A lot closer. So if you're not 100% diligent about what you're doing and where you're doing it, you will dislodge things, knock things off. So I'll come back and clean this up 100% later on. It's only for now just to get the biggest part of the crap out of there. Okay, lovely. That'll do for now. So, top side. Now then, this is where this gets tricky, because without the proper tip on your soldering iron, you will struggle here. So, once you get this in focus, get it nice and close so you can see just what's going on. Okay, so we can see there, again, pins, pads line up quite nicely. So I'm going to add flux. Okay, so what you need to do in this instance is I use a J-tip for this, and it's quite useful. It's a fairly slim J-tip. It's a Hakko T-Series J-tip is this one. Works perfectly well in the Jovi. Okay, so as I say, you'll notice the shape, like it's bent, and that's nice because you don't have a lot of clearance between the pads and the legs and these diodes and capacitors here, so getting these first sort of 5 pins done can be tricky. The ones over here are fine, you've got plenty of room, but these are a pain in the arse. So what I like to do is turn it upside down so you can actually press down and onto the pad. Now then, do be mindful, because you're using the tip of that iron blade, it's going to take longer to saturate that pin with heat than it would if you were using the broad side of the tip, i.e. that side. So you can try and go in a little bit sort of like further around like that. Just be mindful that you're not prodding and poking these while you're doing it, because you don't want to damage them, you don't want to knock them off. Because of that reason, once you've actually soldered all these in position, just go back and make sure they are properly soldered. I usually go over them a couple of times just while I'm here, just to try and make sure that they are indeed soldered well. Like I say, once you pass the first sort of 4 or so, you can turn the iron over a little bit more, use more of the broad side of the tip. And all should be well with the world if you do that. All should be well with the world. So we're just making sure that we push these pins down to the board. A little bit of firm pressure. Not too much, obviously, because we don't want to break anything. We don't want to damage any pins or pads, but just enough to make sure that the pin is seated down onto the pad securely, and the solder comes up over the top. That's the beauty about pre-tinning your pads, is that there's something there to help anchor these pins when you go in with the iron. And then just touch the edge with the very tip, so that boundary point between the edge of the pin and the base of the pad, or the base of the pin and the edge of the pad even. It just helps to flow everything back nice and uniformly along the length of the leg, and you're left with a rather nice, neat looking solder joint at the end of that if you follow that. Now then, here's another word of warning for you. These 1200s do seem to dissipate heat from this region of the board and the HDMI header better than the old 1100 series. So if you're using a slightly underpowered iron, or an iron with a tip that's not working quite as well as it may be, then you can have fun here, and you can end up where the legs don't quite solder as well as what they might otherwise do. So you may have a little bit of fun making sure they're all soldered in place. This tip I've got here is probably just about on the boundaries of acceptable. It doesn't owe me anything anyway. I can assure you that. It's more than paid for itself. It probably is just about ready for retiring. Need to get some new tips ordered, actually. We're just going to have a quick clean around. Get rid of the biggest part of the old flux. Okay, again, it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to go back over here once it's all tested and before final reassembly just to make sure that we get any last bits of crap, but as long as it's, you know, somewhere like close to being clean. There's less to do later on. So, always nudge test these. That's good. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. 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 That one's not good. That one's moving, as you can see. As I say, they dissipate heat a lot better, which means that although it looks like you're flowing the solder onto the pad and the pin, sometimes it's just not enough to quite get that joint. Like I said, when you've got a tip that's not quite performing as it should be, that's more likely to happen to you. You can see that this is still moving around. So if that does happen, just clean the blade, tin it with some more leaded solder. You might want to put a drop of flux on there. You can see that we've still got some embedded deep into that sort of joint there. That's what this liquidous stuff is coming out of the bottom there. But you can see now that that's not moving anywhere. It's good. That one's good. That one's good. It's good. 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 And good. Excellent. So we just had the one. To be honest, it tends to be... Oh, here we go. This one here. This one's another one. Because you have to use the tip. This one. Because that one is actually ground as well. So that one just sucks the heat completely away. Again, can be a real git to make sure it's soldered properly. Now it is ground, and providing the other ground pins are soldered, it doesn't particularly matter if that one's loose, but I hate the fact that it may be loose, thinking it may be loose, going out back to customers, it may be loose. Nah, not for me. Some people will leave it, some people do leave it. Not me. No, thank you. If somebody's paid me to do this, they're paid me to do it properly. So we will make sure it leaves here, done in a proper fashion. So that's enough. That's enough now to go to testing. I didn't crimp those bloody... See the edge of the leg there. You can do it when it's in the board, but I'd always recommend trying to make sure you do it before you put the port in. There you go. Now you see there, much more around the base of the back of the leg. Lovely jubbly. Right, that's that then, ladies and gentlemen. So these are put together back put back together, cleaned together. What the fuck am I talking about? These are now in such a sufficient state. They're clean enough to put back together to test. That's what I was trying to say. Anyway, there we go. So those are now in a position where you can put them back in the chassis and test them. Make sure they work. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they will. And if they do, fantastic. You can just finish stripping them down and give them a proper thorough cleaning. So that's those. So for now, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a quick catch up. We did a little bit of work, quick catch up on why I've been fairly quiet and what I've been doing. So hopefully there you've at least enjoyed that. You've got a bit of an insight as to what's been going on and what's coming up. And hopefully we'll have some more interesting videos to show you soon. I've been Andy Paul, you've been fantastic. As always, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at YTAndrewPaul. DM inbox is open to everybody, so if you've got something you'd like to message me, drop me a line there. If it is a question with regards to a repair or an issue you're having, I do kind of prefer those to be left in the comments of the appropriate video. The reason being is that, you know, it helps everybody. Chances are that you're having an issue that quite a few people there have been having. You may even find the answer there. If not, or you know, you don't really want to trawl through all the comments, then by all means just drop a comment in there. I do see them, I do check them regularly. So, you know, like I say, once I've replied to you, you never know. Somebody else just over there might be having the same very exact issue, and of course if they get the benefit of seeing your question and my response, then it may help them in, you know, a quicker time frame than what they would otherwise get. So just as a mind of aiding the other members of the community, that would be very much appreciated. As always, if you would like a repair, I do offer these repairs out these days openly to you all, so you can hit me up on my email address. You can email me at basically it's ytandrewpaul@outlook.com. That's my business address. Feel free to pop anything in there if you've got some machines you want repairing. If you are a business interested in sending some work across to me, business to business, absolutely fine and more than welcome. Likewise, if you've got a question, I'd prefer it didn't go to that email address unless it's a question about getting some work done. Nothing personal, you know, but like I said, there's plenty of channels on here for getting advice from me, and frankly, you know, cluttering up my business inbox with just general questions on how can I do this, how can I do that, takes a bit of filtering through when, you know, I'm trying to find business related emails. There might be customer emails in there, customers from, you know, emails from suppliers. I've got to trawl through hundreds of messages in there, which could have just been left on Twitter or on YouTube. It just helps me out, guys, so that'd be much appreciated if you could just adhere to those quick simple rules. As always, I'm always here. Drop me in the comments, private message on here, absolutely fine, no problem at all. As I say, if you do have any sort of business related queries, if you've got a machine you would like to be repaired, as I say, drop me an email to my business email, hit me up here, of course, private message, Twitter DM, whatever you like, I'll always see it there. So yeah, that's that one, ladies and gentlemen. That's that one said. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I need to sort of get out of the way before I leave you to it. I think we've just about covered it all. So as always, that was it. Yes, business related repairs. Unfortunately, I can't offer services out to US customers. The reason being is just shipping expenses. You know, it costs a fortune to mail machines to and from the States, and you know, it kind of makes the services rendered rather pointless because of the, you know, because of the costs involved. So, you know, it's nothing personal at all, you know. It's just a case of the fact that by the time you factor shipping into the cost of repair, it really is no, you know, there's no margin in anything for me. There's no, you know, you won't want to pay it because it's more than the machines these days, unfortunately. I can point you in the right direction of some US based service if you need it, with pleasure. in most cases anyway. So yeah, please feel free to hit me up if that's the case. Just know that unfortunately if you are in the US, it's not going to be me that's going to be able to service your machine. However, if you're in the UK or the EU, then by all means drop me a message, and I'm sure we can accommodate you. I can take work from all over the EU, all over the UK. I've had stuff in recently from France, Germany, places like that, so you know, absolutely fine. Likewise, again, if you need a part, if you're missing some diodes or capacitors, or you need some ICs or whatever else, feel free to drop me a line, and I can ship those worldwide. I'll get a full quote to you shipping if you can get back to me with your address and what you require, and I'll get you a quote, no problem. So anyway, with that said, thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I know that we've not covered anything too groundbreaking there today, but hopefully you've seen what we can do. And hopefully, as I say, you've enjoyed watching it, and as I say, it's helped me just to get off my chest. Get off my chest, get it? Off the back of this bloody illness that I've had. And get back to doing some work. And of course, getting back to you guys on YouTube, and hopefully at least giving you something to fill your lunch hour with at work tomorrow. So, thanks for watching. You've been brilliant. I've been Andy Paul, and I will see you very shortly on the next video. So from me for today, it's bye bye for now. Many thanks for watching then, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then why not check out these recommendations below. Also, please remember to comment, rate, and of course subscribe to the channel if you found this useful. We've plenty more content on there, and there's lots more to come.